Well, hello, and welcome to Opal City Confidential, a Starman podcast, episode 6. And we are going to cover Adventure 467 and 468, the first two appearances of the 80s Starman for Prince Gavin, created by Paul Levitz and Steve Ditko. He had a short run in Adventure Comics, had a great DC Comics Presents, which I can't wait to cover. And then plays a big part in kind of the mythos of Jack. Him and Will Payton being the two Starmen right preceding David and Jack. They have they become intertwined. But he had his own series, and I remember reading this when it first came out. So it's nice to revisit it. So why don't we get started, and we'll start with Adventure Comics 467. 467 was published, it was cover dated January 1980, which means it came out about 3 months earlier, so it came out when I was a freshman in high school. Woo, this is old. The cover is by Steve Ditko and Dave Cockrum and Dick Giordano. Ditko did the Adventure Comics during this period, shared. It was there were two stars. There was Starman and Plastic Man. And the Starman was done by Lynn Wein and Joe Staton, inked by Bob Smith. But Steve Ditko did the half of the cover that is Starman, and Cockrum and Giordano did the Plastic Man cover. The title of the Starman story is First Encounter. It is written by Paul Levitz, penciled by Steve Ditko, inked by Romeo Tangal. Colorist is Glynis Oliver. Letterer Gasper Saladino. And editor, the amazing Lynn Wein. I paused there for a second because I wanted to get the actual comic, the publication date, and found out that this comic was published on the 23rd of October, 1979, 5 days before my 15th birthday. This story is only an 8-page story, and because, this was a split book. The Plastic Man story was originally produced for a Plastic Man Adam Strange title DC planned to launch, but was canceled. It was canceled because it was going to be part of a 5-star superhero spectacular dollar comic. So they kind of took part of the cover and then added the Starman cover. If that makes sense. They just kind of reused the Plastic Man and the Cockrum part of this cover, and then had Ditko do a cover. A brief synopsis. There isn't a synopsis in the database, and there isn't a synopsis in the Grand Comic database. So I'll kind of go through it as I go through the comic. The synopsis in the Grand Comic database is: Starman briefly captured by Oswin and rescues Jediah, Rikane, who are big characters. So let's get started, and we'll kind of go through 467. Okay, the title of this first story is called First Encounter. I want to start with saying what I think about... I'm not the biggest Ditko fan in his later work. I love his Spider-Man. I love his 50s stuff. His 50s stuff is fucking mind-altering. And his Doc Strange, and I love that stuff. But I find a lot of his... Toward the end of his career at DC and sometimes at Marvel... Either he didn't have the right inkers or it was rushed. I don't know what it was. It just didn't kind of nail it. I forgot how good Romeo Tangal's inks look on his art. And I find this some of the best of his art in the 80s. And more, not because it's Starman, because this Starman isn't one of, this wasn't, the Starman that made me a Starman fan. This is kind of a Starman that I appreciated, and I love that Robinson and Harris used him as part of the mythos. But it starts with this great 2-panel page with a rocket ship, with some great narration going through. Star Cruiser hurtling toward a certain doom in the fiery heat of a sun, an unlikely point at which to begin a story. True, but the beginning, nonetheless, of this most unlikely saga. For the almost invincible figure who soars towards the cruiser on the solar winds is going to change the destiny of its helpless passengers. And perhaps write his own page in the history of the universe as well. And then it says Starman, and it's using the logo from the one issue special, Disco Starman Michael. And you got Starman just flying, thinking, I don't know why this ship lost control so suddenly, but now it's got only one chance for survival, and that chance is me. First encounter, and then it's got the credits. And then he has kind of like bands on his wrist like Quasar, Wendell Vaughn from Marvel. They're very similar. And Captain Marvel, like Marvel, used bands. It's kind of a 70s trope, I guess. And he stops it using his energy being blasts. He slows it down, and then he climbs in, and the ship is run by a guy named Lord Protector Oswin. And he's invited in, and he goes to Oswin. And Oswin is Lord Protector, sir, of the guard. He says, Starman comes in and goes, Oswin, I presume. And Oswin responds, Lord Protector Oswin, sir, guardian of the galactic rift and elect of the Empire. And you, Starman, will have to do, I fear, for I find names and titles tend to confuse the question. I bear mine with pride, Starman, but if you would conceal yours, I shall not argue. I am in your debt, sir. And he has got very Ditko face. He's got these big eyebrows that circle down into little black dots right by his eyeballs. His mustache is pencil thin with a little round bowl at either end. And then there's a goatee with a little round in his cleft chin. And he's wearing, this is a lot of great design. I like Starman's costume. It's wearing the red bodice, yellow leggings, red boots with blue trim. The bands are red and blue. And he's got a big star in his chest. He's got yellow goggles. His blonde hair is waving through. And he's got these kind of, I guess they're supposed to be sparkling stars on the bottom part of the bodice. Oswin asks him about his ship after telling him that their ship had failed. And Starman's reaction, ships are so cumbersome, Lord Oswin. I prefer to travel light. And as they're walking, they hear this noise and a oomph in the background. And Oswin goes, oh, no, it's just the engines. What it is it's Jediah being tortured. Jediah Rikane being tortured. And he's thinking of all the stories he's heard about this hero Starman who saves him. And he's fighting the torture. And you find out that he is on a mission from his empress, Lady Merria, which is Merri. I hope I'm saying it. She wants him to go. She hears of unrest out in the galaxy and wants to have a coronation in a week, but she wants peace. And she sends him on this mission. And he, as Jediah remembers, my search led me to a distant moon called Zal, Xalo, where a native claimed to know of the plot against the throne. But by the time I learned Oswin's plan, he had discovered me. My report wasn't even written yet. And he's been captured, and he's being tortured. And he's thinking to himself inside the torture chamber, I can't even dream of stopping Oswin now, especially if Starman is on his side. He's certain to steal the throne. But then we cut back to Oswin and Starman, and Oswin is kind of pumping Starman for information, and he wants to know how Starman can fly in space without a ship. And when he doesn't tell him, he gets pissed and sends his guards after Starman. Starman is battling his men, and he's overcome, it looks like, but he's invulnerable to their beams. And he flies off, and Starman finds Jediah Rikane being tortured. He battles the torture and knocks him out. And he asks Jediah, and what do we have here? An Imperial security officer in a captivator, which is, I guess, is the science fiction name for the device he's been strapped into. And he asks Starman not to leave him. And Starman uses the machine, and Jediah asks you, how did you know how to free me? That's supposed to be an Imperial secret. I know a lot of Imperial secrets, Jediah Rikane, even your name. But put this on so we can get out of here. And he gives him a spacesuit, and he burns a hole through the lock of the airlock, and they go out. And Jediah is like, is it amazing he can, because Starman's just floating out there, no mask, no nothing. You mean no air mask? He's got a costume on, but no mask on his face, and he doesn't understand it. How can this be happening? And they're asking, he asks him some question, and Starman goes, "Come on, there's a cool current flowing towards the solar ring, and I want to make use of it. No sense fighting the tides." And Jediah goes, "I didn't even know there were tides in space." "Certainly, ebbs and flows are everywhere. You just have to look for them, the ones to lead you home." "That crystalline rock, is this your home?" "Now it is." And they land on the asteroid, and they're met by a green-faced alien with a staff. Who greets them, "Good work out there, lad. And you did it without killing, too. This time, Mn'Torr, it's M'Torr, Mn'Torr. This is what I could do. You can always strike for the right without being wrong, lad. Remember that. You remember that as well, Jediah Rikane." Jediah is a little pissed off and can't. Everybody knows the secret. "Is my name no secret everywhere?" And then Starman responds, "There are no secrets here, my friend, save those Mn'Torr keeps. And if we live in eternity, we will never learn those. Only because you will not listen, lad." And Jediah is like, "Starman, you saved my life there on Oswin's ship. I'm your man now." Starman says, "Ha, that's funny. That's how I got into this too, sort of. Before you make any rash promises, though, let's talk of what you know and of a job that needs doing. A job that may cost both of us our lives to finish." And then the next panel says, "Next, uneasy lies the crown." Well, I mean, I don't think I've read this since it originally came out, and maybe a couple times after that. I did reread it from time to time because I really did like it. It was a fun comic, and the Lynn Wein, Joe Staton, Bob Smith Plastic Man is amazing. But I reread it, and then I think I reread it when I start reading Starman again, and he popped up when I read the 90s, Jack, the main Starman series. I hate to call it that, but it is. And I really enjoyed it. The art is stunning. I'm reading it on the app. The colors are very bright. I think they're brighter than they would have been in 1980. But they're stunning. It's a simple 8-page story. Imagine that. Stuff happens. There are description boxes. There are thought balloons. And I'm sorry. That's my pet peeve as an old comic fan. What word balloon? Sunny. It works really well. It's it's Paul Levitz. Paul Levitz in the 80s when he was just hitting his groove. Just right. I mean, I just posted today on Twitter my 10 favorite comic writers today. Anytime I post one of those listed, that's what I felt like at this minute. It's not a best worst because I hate best worst. I think that's an asinine argument. There are ones you like, ones you don't like, ones you enjoy, those you don't enjoy. Sometimes I like a guy on certain books, and some guys I don't like a guy. So I'm a big Roy Thomas fan. There's Roy Thomas stuff I love. His Legion I do not love. But Paul Levitz is on that list, mostly because of his Legion and his Justice Society work. And this, I forgot how good this was, and I forgot it was his. That's a great story. So let's jump into Adventure Comics 468. Okay. It was cover dated February 1980. It was published on the 20th of November 1979. Its managing editor is Joe Orlando at this time. This is before Paul. Wow. And Lynn Wein is the editor. This time it has a Jim Aparo cover, and he does both sides, the Starman side and the Plastic Man. It's Aparo inks and pencils and inks. Colors by Tatiana Wood. Letter is Jasper Saladino. Easy Lies the Crown is the Starman comic. It is written by Paul Levitz. Pencils by Steve Ditko. Inks by Romeo Tangal. Colors by Adrian Moy. And letter is by Jasper Saladino. The synopsis this time is: Starman invades the Imperial Palace to stop Lord Oswin's plan to control the monarchy. Starman reveals his identity to Merria. And let's look at reprints, because I didn't think about that. It was reprinted in the Steve Ditko Omnibus, DC Omnibus Volume 2. So I'm assuming, let's see, let me double check that if it was in the first one too. I like that. No, it's reprinted in Adventure Comics 498, which is... Oh, it's when it was in the digest. Duh, that's where I read it again, because I remember Adventure Comics became a digest, and it had reprints of Legion in or publication order. And I turned a buddy on to those by reading those, and that's how I read those early Legion stories for the first time. It was in these Adventure Digests. I wish I still had them. I really do, because they were great. It was a great way to... I don't mind a little bitty comic. It's fun. But that's where that one was reprinted in. And just so you know, the Plastic Man story, Lynn Wine, Joe Staten, Bob Smith, Glennis Oliver, Ben Oda on letters, and guest editor was Ross Andrew. But let's talk about the Starman story. So this one's called Uneasy Lies the Crown. The splash page is this great... It's got this great... Starman is flying through a fleet of ships toward Throne World. And the text box at the beginning, Coronation Day. 100 billion sentient beings focusing on a single awesome event as a new ruler steps to the imperial throne. 1,000 starships converging on the fabulous floating palace as the lords of the realm vie to shine in reflecting glory. And to that mix add one uninvited guest, gracefully gliding between the cruisers on a solar current as only he can feel. Starman, uneasy lies the crown. Starman is thinking, there's Stormworld dead ahead. I pray I'm in time for the ceremony, because if I'm not, I might just have to kill the Empress to save the Empire. And then it's got the credits of everybody. Controlled bursts of stellar radiation should blind these spy eyes while I land, and that looks like a good spot to enter the air shield. And he's thinking, 300 square miles of palace grounds, and I picked this spot to touch down. So much for being able to control my subconscious sense of direction. At least I should be safe inside the garden wall. And then guards are there. Whoops! Imperial guards, you guys really move in quickly. Stop! You cannot enter the grounds. These are the domain of Lord Sorrel of Cloth. Starman goes, rented the place out before last tenant's fires? Even got cold, huh? I know. I should have known the Empress was always a thrifty sort. And he battles these guys with some pithy dialogue. And then he sneaks around. He's flying through the shadows. And he's thinking, but if I stick to the shadows, maybe I can find Lord Oswin's force field thought control device before he turns it on the Empress, and we all end up being ruled by a very petty, by a very pretty sheep in imperial clothing. And there she is, right on cue. And then he's watching as she's being driven to. She's on this little motorized throne, and behind her is Oswin and her lady in waiting. And Starman is thinking the whole imperial procession off to the ceremony, and all the nobility too, probably walking for the first time in years. Tradition is such a wonderful motivator. There is the lady of the hour, complete with her imperial mark tattooed on her forehead, waiting for the crown to crease her brow. Lady Merria, lovely as ever already, and adopted the new imperial house I see. Even Lord Protector Oswin is smiling like a mongrel basking in the sun. And why not? He thinks he's the power behind the throne by day's end. This has got some... It's Paul Levitz, a little worried, but it's fun. And he keeps thinking of Merria. Then there's a couple page... There's a 2-panel flashback to explain everything. How he rescued Jediah. And how he knows of that... What... The crown is unique, is the only thing unique, and he realized that that's how he's going to use the jewel to focus the mind control on her. And he knows that the power is in the power source of the grounds, which is a gravity well. Enough crushing force to collapse even the toughest pressure suit. In the one place the Empire is safe enough to protect the ground. And he startled, he turns around, and there's Mn'Torr behind him. Mn'Torr, what in the Seven Sons are you doing here? I thought you might need me, so I came. Does that truly matter? You must have given me a gentler welcome, because he got zapped in the face. Mn'Torr, you're incredible. A human way to looking at it, Starman, and quite limited. And they jump into the gravity well, and they get down to where the crown is stored. They bust through a wall. And like any good starship, you break through a metal wall, and it's nothing but rocks. And the crown is in this device. So he realized that Oswin expected him, and there's a force field around the crown. Mn'Torr uses his staff to protect himself. Starman does some karate and punches. He gets stabbed. Ooh. I don't know if it's in his back or in his arm. But he gets it. Mn'Torr's staff has knockout gas. Oh no, it is the arm because he's holding it. And then he kung fu kicks a guard, creates a shield with his blaster, and then knocks him out. He smashes the device, gets out the crown, and they fly off. And they turn around. And there is Lady Mn'Torr. Then the Empress gave you the honor of bringing her the crown. Oh, it's Lady Merria, not the Empress. It's Lady Merria. Then the Empress gave you the honor of bringing her the crown. And who are you to speak so familiar to me, to a peer of the realm? And he pulls off his mask. I, of all people, have that right, Merria. It seems we meet again. In a lifetime I thought we would never share. By the host, it's you! You did it! You came back to claim the throne! And the final caption is, so we've whetted your appetite. Next, a star a-borning. So, we've 2 issues in, and we still don't know who's Starman, but we know he is a member of the royal family. Again, this is a simple 8 or 9 page story. Let me double check that. It's 8 pages, so 16. But this would have been a low count on 1 issue, but there's a lot going on, and it all happens. It's got action. It's got a flashback. You can do a flashback, people. You know, I'm on my soapbox about how some comics bug me. This one doesn't. There is thought balloons. I like thought balloons. People, you hear motivations. It didn't give anything away until the end, other than he was familiar with the throne world and he's familiar with these people, which we got the last issue. But it's got some, it's moving along. It's really, as I'm reading it, this is it. It's Flash Gordon. It's Buck Rogers. It's a Republic serial. It is short, and it took me 15 minutes to read this. God forbid, 8 pages took 15 minutes to read. I wish all comics took me 45 minutes to an hour to read, to kind of go through and have all the depth. But there's a lot going on, and it works. This is fun. It is very space opera, which is cool. I'm a big fan of, like, Jim Starlin's Starman. I was a huge fan of Quasar with Wendell Vaughn. There are other galactic comics. I read Englehart's Silver Surfer. I love the Valentino Guardians of the Galaxy. I really do want to cover that soon. The Amazing Billy from A World on Fire bought me the first trade, and it's one of my favorite comics of that era. I really, really loved it. But this is fun, and I'm really glad I'm rereading it. I'm enjoying it. It holds up. It really holds up. It's fun. It's on the app. Read it. And there is a payoff in the mythos of Starman as Robinson folds all these Starmen into his tale over time. This won't take long to get through all of this. It'll probably 10 episodes to cover all of his original stuff. I will then touch on how this version of him ends, because post-crisis and kind of some stuff is folded into Starman, and then he's back after the Starman series, and I will, when I get deeper into Starman, we'll start examining some of that. But that's it for this week. This took a lot. It took 25 minutes to tell you about 2 comics. I hope it was somewhat interesting. I did do a lot of reading the dialogue, which I do some, but more so because we didn't have a synopsis. This is a fun comic. Read along with me. It's on the app. If you're not getting the Ultra, I really recommend it. This is not needed for the Ultra, but it's really worth the read. We'll be back next week with Adventure Comics 64 and Starman Volume 2, Number 3, the final part of Sins of the Father, as we finish the first arc of Jack's tenure. And in 2 weeks, we will do Starman 1 at Volume 1 and 2, and I will read Will Payton for the first time. I did read the Eclipso crossover. That is all of Will Payton I have ever read. So I really don't remember it. It's not the greatest event. But I've not read Will Payton, and I've purposely, not purposely, but since I decided to do this podcast, I decided not to jump into it. I've had the run since I bought it during the pandemic, and I've kept it because I want it for my Starman collection. So I can't wait to read it, and I'm looking forward to sharing my thoughts with you. So again, as always, I will see you. Well, you will listen to me in a few days with my Legion adventure. We're going to cover 2 issues. I had thought about doing 3 because they're all one and dones, but I'm going to do just 2 issues. The next 2 issues of Adventure Comics, and then this weekend I will be doing some recording. I did not record this weekend. I was supposed to record with Billy to finish up Freedom Fighter. He was nice enough to reschedule it because a dear friend of mine lost her father, and I really wanted to be at the memorial service because that's what you do for friends. Her dad was a good guy, and I understand how that is, losing a parent. It was more important than comic books. So I'm going to do the Stargirl this weekend coming up, and me and Billy D will be recording Those Daring Defenders. We're going to cover Luke Cage's first Defender story, and I'm looking forward to talking to Billy about those. So, folks, until then, be safe, be smart, be kind to one another, and read some comics.